Hey guys, kids, welcome to Friday of Mr. Parker's Bedtime Stories. It's the end of another week under lockdown, and we are reading story number 32 of this wonderful series. I'm going to say kids series, but I love it too, and other adults love it as well. So it's more than just a kids book. The Mr. Men series by the wonderful Roger Hargreaves. Hello, first viewer. And tonight we are delving into another one of the wonderful characters of this series. And I wonder if again we will have loads of reoccurring characters. We seem to have Mr. Happy, Mr. Tickle, Mr. Nosy, and Mr. Greedy. They always keep coming back. Clearly they're paid the most by the Mr. Men Company, and that's why they always come into other stories. Anyway then, on to tonight's story. I hope you've had a good day and you've had a productive day, as well as celebrating VE Day, remembering when Europe was freed from Nazi Germany. And I don't know what you've done. Some of you might have done baking or hanging out bunting, doing the 2-minute silence and other things like that. I hope you've had a good day all around, and it has been beautiful as well, which always helps, of course. Anyway, let's read this wonderful story. This is Mr. Worry. As I was worrying last night, did you not see my amazing clue? Anyway, poor Mr. Worry. Whatever happened, he worried about it. If it rained, he worried that his roof was going to leak. Maybe some of your parents worry about that if your house is older. If it didn't rain, he worried that all the plants in his garden were going to die. And that's why we have hose pipes. To stop worry. If he set off shopping, he worried that the shops would be shut when he got there. And when the shops weren't shut when he got there, he worried that he was spending too much money shopping. Wonder if your parents sometimes worry if you're spending too much of their money. And when he got home with his shopping, he worried that he'd left something behind, or that something had fallen out of his basket on the way home. And when he got home and discovered that he hadn't left anything behind, and that nothing had fallen out of his basket on the way home, he worried that he'd bought too much. And then he worried about where to put it all. That's what me and my wife do when we've been shopping. Where do you put your shopping? Life was just one long worry for poor Mr. Worry. That's all these Mr. Men seem to do, isn't it? They get up, tells you the morning routine, they go shopping, and they come back. One day he went for a walk. Here we are. He was worried that he might walk too far and not be able to get home. But on the other hand, he was worried that if he didn't walk far enough, he wouldn't get enough exercise. He hurried along, worrying. Or you could say he worried along, hurrying. Hurrying, get it. He met Mr. Bump. I'm very worried about you, he said. Oh, we love Mr. Bump. He was the one who made me laugh when I was reading his story. Why is that? Asked Mr. Bump. I'm worried that one of these days you might hurt yourself, he said. Don't you worry your head about that, replied Mr. Bump, and went off. Of course, tripping over his own feet, Mr. Worry went on. He met Mr. Noisy. I'm very worried about you, he said. He doesn't look very worried, does he? Looks like smiling. Why is that? Asked Mr. Noisy. I'm worried that you might lose your voice, said Mr. Worry. Don't you worry your head about that, said Mr. Noisy, and went off. Clump, clump, clump. Mr. Worry went on. He met Mr. Greedy. Oh, here he is again. I'm very worried about you, he said. He's worried he's going to get skinny. Why is that? Asked Mr. Greedy. I'm worried that you might eat too much and be sick. Oh, the opposite side, explained Mr. Worry. Me, replied Mr. Greedy. Eat too much? Impossible. And went off for lunch. Mr. Worry went on. He did that yesterday, didn't he? He went off for a meal. Maybe that's what he always does. I guess he's greedy, isn't he? He met a wizard. Hello, said the wizard. Who are you? I'm Mr. Worry. And you look it, commented the wizard. Tell you what, he went on, for he was a helpful sort of wizard. Why don't you go home and write down every single thing that you're worried about, and I'll make sure that none of these things ever happen. Wow. That'd be amazing if that happened. He smiled. And then you won't have anything to worry about, will you? Mr. Worry smiled. It was the first time he'd smiled in a long time. In fact, it was the first time he'd smiled that year. He hurried home in great excitement. When he got home, he sat down to write down all the things that worried him. Every single thing. I bet it was a long list. It was a long list. Oh, I got it right. And then he went to bed and had the best night's sleep he'd had in years. Oh, he actually won't be able to sleep if he was worrying, would he? The following morning, the wizard came round to collect Mr. Worry's list. My goodness me, he said when he saw the size of it. However, he said, leave it to me. I'll go off and make sure that none of these things ever happen. And off he went. Nothing to worry about now, he called over his shoulder. Nothing at all. Mr. Worry heaved a sigh of relief. Look at the size of that list. It's huge, isn't it? I think I know why this might have worked. That day was the first day in Mr. Worry's life that he didn't have a single thing to worry about. And the next day, and the day after, and the day after that, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Mr. Worry didn't have a care in the world. But, jumping for joy there, isn't he? On Monday morning, he was a worried man. Oh dear, what do you think was worrying him? Can you guess? He went to see the wizard. Oh dear, said the wizard when he saw him standing on the doorstep. What's worrying you? I'll tell you, said Mr. Worry. There he is, trudging off to see Mr. Wizard. What do you think might have been worrying him? Clever this. I'm worried because I don't have anything to worry about. And he went home to worry about not having anything to worry about. Oh, how silly. What a silly bean. I thought maybe telling the wizard all his worries was stopping him from worrying because he thought that they were magically taken care of, when actually the wizard was just getting him to think of taking them off his mind. And you can do that too if you're worried. You can take things off your mind by telling someone else or writing them down. It really helps. Anyway, sorry for the bit of a spiel there. Thought we could learn something from Mr. Worry. That's it for Mr. Parker's bedtime stories this week, but join me next week. We've still got more to go. And the clue for Monday is it's Mr. Give you a clue, it's a longer word because it goes around the book, around the top of the book, like Mr. Chatterbox does. Anyway, I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And I will see you on Monday for another of Mr. Parker's bedtime stories. Have a great weekend, guys.